presented.
Make a motion to approve the Wednesday, January 27th minutes for as provided.
I'll second it.
More discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried.
Julie?
Financial
Yeah.
report.
Do you want to say something?
No, she just said aye.
Sorry.
First quarter 2021, you want to go ahead with the financial?
Once you guys got both budgets for the last time, I'm about doing one that was, budget to actual, like actual expenses, actual budget, and then there should be one that's just budget related items and those expenses. First quarter, we had our payroll liabilities, you know, there, otherwise you. And any questions on any?
Nothing, staying on.
I just had a quick question. Keep in mind, I may have a lot of them from doing this for 3 weeks, so I apologize if I ask questions that may sound silly. I just don't know. But on the quarterly report under the retirement program, is that quarterly or is that just one lump sum that goes in?
Once a year. So
That's a one time. So
there's a couple things that come out of it. So
There will be something that doesn't hit till December, that is the like, that will hit in December.
so that one's not quarterly. Otherwise it'd be $40,000.
yeah. So what happened with that program? It's a state match one.
Gotcha.
So whatever we set up from the village township, then we take that, take the amount of money, divvy up to the members that make their points and are good standing members, and then the state matches with so much money.
Okay.
So it's a one-time deal every year.
Yeah, I did the time for things like, oh,
So that will stay that way until like the December, I think, like the
number.
comes out next, you know, can be
Gotcha.
anywhere between 2 and 3 dollars.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, I had to look at the sheet, so I haven't even had time to really look at it.
Reach out to anything.
Reach
out to anything you want.
What
What do we got?
For the revenues or the receipts up in the contract, that's big place here.
Okay.
So they did the first one, the second one will be coming, and then, fire dues whenever the village and the town receive them. Gosh, when is that? That is that February, or sorry, July. Then they turn around and send that. To here, yeah.
Don't ask how the numbers are set. And what it's set up, it's home values, insurance, all that stuff.
There's a bunch of stuff that goes, but
Any other questions? Any other questions on the- If not, motion in order to approve. Unless you want more time.
Make a motion to approve the financial report, first quarter 2021 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
More discussion?
There's no problem for you to do the spreadsheets.
no, I just start with the one that's the whole operation and then, just save it. And then I just get rid of the ones that I don't.
Did you ask that question yet?
No, I'm in Excel, I use Excel 10 hours a day, so I'm all about this stuff.
It's just that we use two spreadsheets because one is just line items that are on the budget and the other one kind of goes a little bit more in depth. And it just makes it clearer because a lot of times it's like, well, what is that item? We are just the budget.
Right.
We kind of created some other, like expense items, like the C1 nurses, emergency firefighting supplies grant. So that's a purchase that was made with grant dollars. So, because if you group it otherwise, it looks kind of funny, like you'll be over budgeted, but.
Right. Yeah, and I'm gonna guess all the percentages, those are all gonna change your report.
Yep.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion of approval, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Old business, the terminal.
We didn't go out there and try burn, but I did talk to Sean Scholar, just got his idea. He said that one we should extend it longer with Bill mowing and stuff. That's really good out there. He said we want to try in the fall. I would try, but it wasn't. Didn't seem to be that we didn't get to it this year. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. There's something that's, we did his property and it's all standing 4 or 5 foot tall grass that burns real easy.
Yeah.
That stuff like laying down. Pouring too much fuel on it to try to burn it. So for now, we're putting it off till at least fall.
Okay.
Then extended the time frame between the.
Yeah, and I don't remember what it said. At least 5, 6 years for it to burn.
Yeah, I suppose the longer you leave it.
Yeah, and hopefully small grasses and whatever come in and burn it.
All right, then we got the picnic shelter that's funded by that's. We marked it out for, put it on, that kind of well, mark it if anybody wants to. What's in different, that's all.
Does the village know that we have additional land?
Oh, yeah, and then, well, we added to the park, there was a little triangle piece of land that sticks out because of the road curves, and it was actually, part of the subdivision that went in that didn't go with that, when Tom was able to. That was about an acre and a half. So the person actually donated. All we had to do was pay for all the filing. So they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we'll probably, cut a bunch of trees on the front, so we get more visibility to that shelter, so that, otherwise it might turn into a party area, so. We've already had some kind of issues that like to park around the corner there. We'll probably remove some trees along the road there.
Would it be of benefit to have like a park cleanup day or something and see if we can get people out there? Or are we gonna just have employees do it, or what are your thoughts there?
Oh, you may start cutting trees?
Yeah, and just kind of,
I don't know if I want.
yeah, it could be an insurance nightmare.
Yeah. There's some, it's mostly some, there is a couple of big trees that will probably leave, and there's some pines that are probably past, we're trying to.
As town supervisors, or are we covered under insurance? Okay, so that means we can go out there if we want to and help.
For sure.
Well, you got enough of whatever you would need, or is there something that those might have that you might be able to out there with?
You?
Well, I mean, they got other equipment, like they, I don't know if they have attachments on the tool cat and stuff, but.
Maybe, well, that's maybe a possibility, I don't know what the village has provided for, if we could provide some net or maybe help cut trees.
How about a chipper? Does the village have a chipper?
I believe it.
We can probably check them, but I don't think I've ever seen. So yeah, maybe I don't know, refer that to your first committee about whether they can supply or who needs to prove that from the, you can help send a couple of guys up. Help them with the car to probably get those trees down.
Your daytime regular employees, it's not volunteers.
Yeah. Then coordinate, we can just coordinate our work group. Anything else on the Thanksgiving shelter? I think we got.
What was the time?
So I currently submitted the building
We submitted the building.
Building. application.
We'll find out if it takes as long as the people call in and say it takes.
I mean, I could building permit. The application might not always go. We'll find it.
Originally, we had,
But maybe it's changed.
the new board members, you know, or I guess I'm assuming they know what we're not talking about, the turnout curve. Oh, by the railroad track, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Drove by it like 2 weeks ago for the first time. So.
Okay. I guess, no, I've never looked blogs, but if you got a question, don't be afraid to ask, you know, I just assume.
There's a little bit of something on our website.
There is history on our website concerning it, and it was, you know.
It's a joint,
It's owned by the
joint
village
home
and the
between the
town.
town and the village.
55 acres approximately, and
And we
there's
had
some
asked,
history on that.
yeah, we had asked about building this shelter earlier, as long as it did cost the village any money, because the other people were behind it. So.
There was somebody from one of the local, I think the St. Croix Bike and Pedestrian Trail Coalition, that was asking about the possibility of doing a single track mountain bike trail around the perimeter, and whether or not that comes to fruition. But there's been some interest in doing other things, for instance, a dog park. Right now, it's just set up strictly for pedestrian traffic only, and people will walk their dogs. But we're trying to get more use out of the park, get more people to find, just be a more multi-use space. So park.
We did get an $1,800 grant from the Somerset Community Foundation for the shelter. So that was something that we were awarded. For the, you know,
Like a single track like thing, but else to be possibly used like cross country skiers in the winter or something like that.
Yeah,
Nice spot to
exactly.
go, or whatever fat hair bikes.
Alrighty, moving on, is there any update to the bylaws? Is there any work?
No, we did not make any updates to that.
Update on building maintenance, I guess we haven't, on the spreadsheet, and I was looking through that.
did we get the fan replaced?
Thing I replaced,
Okay, just the one.
well, Donnie was here. Yeah, we only did one and that we're getting four, but then after Donnie was, he said, a couple of them newer too, like not new, but soon. So I told, like I said, as long as it goes out, we can just say replace it and Donnie, put a new one and then I don't care. As long as it's working.
Did you get the building?
No,
Get it to
whether we get it or you guys, like I would imagine it come to you guys, but
It should come from the.
if I get it. And then, as long as he's here, you replace that ballast and that one, like you get ballast for it. We just, we don't have a ladder on it, since never anyone, since he was here with college.
Fire department doesn't have any homes.
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, they got one in the trees. 20 foot.
That kind of.
They're requesting a ladder truck though. Yeah,
Then that.
let us set up.
Beside, building maintenance, we were talking, pretty soon, putting lights on this wall, facing that, like when it's, we found out last night it's even worse when the doors are off, on both sides. When the door goes up, it blocks all the lights, the whole front row, like, it's pitch black in the front, and you're trying to work on oil change now, checking on the truck man. So we're trying to see if we can get lights on both sides of the bay that are down, that point down, so these lights on the front of the bay for them. We get to see inside the trucks. You're trying to go through the compartments and see what's in there. Dark.
The power and those back right there.
Yeah, there's plenty of power on both sides. There's a light actually over here, 70 degree right over, so it would shine where it needs to be. The light is right there.
So you're asking for.
For you guys that's looking, we asked a lot, It came up with the last.
And the doors come up with something. That's pretty much a good idea.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about it.
No, I didn't. It came up again last night. 'Cause we were talking last night. And so, and now with the, without having the exhaust system removal, or removal of the grass, we open the doors where the apartments keep starting to want trucks in there, so they're open during these months. When it's nice out. Winter's a little different, but it's still dark on that. This side of the engine's so tall. Where the matter truck's short enough where when the doors are shut, it's lighting's not a problem, but it's now when the doors are open.
You think like one?
I think one on each, that wouldn't be figured out.
Yeah, that's something wrong.
Yeah. Sure, right.
It'd be fixed on the wall. Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just.
That's all.
It really is something on the wall that.
Yeah.
Light switch and just have an outlet.
Are the lights on that side fluorescent or are they LEDs?
They're all LED.
I don't remember the upgrade on that.
I think you updated them, but they don't come for LED.
I think they're just fluorescent. Yeah, new one. I don't think they have any.
Well, you can get LEDs that use existing ballasts, or you can get them ballast bypass. So you can use them either way. There's just a different type of bulb.
Yeah, you upgraded them around years ago, and now it's huge. They're all reflective, and whatever, so it lights up a lot.
Okay.
It still wouldn't help on the side,
You can start at just one spot and go 8 feet, not enough, you can add another 8 feet right to it.
but just show it.
Right into each other.
Now we'll check in, update on the UT purchase.
Delivered Monday morning, so it's over there. It's not in service, yeah, we still have more.
After we go take.
Yeah, it is, it's really nice, like, having them build it, it's all closed up. It's close to
Put the final bill come to one.
31 something. I don't know what it's called. I'm actually shooting this check. 31. Oh,
Last year. It was,
Plus 7 grand, or that was with the
4,000. We get 4,000 something back. 50%. So our portion would be 26 something. So
What is the balance of it?
that's all. It
it
won't be enough to buy.
Yeah. Because I just need those.
It won't cover the tender?
What, no. I'm sure we're going to pick up.
Oh, okay.
It was like 37 or 41.
Somewhere around.
Travis, can you just go over that just a little bit with them?
So,
How it all.
yeah, so that's the reason why we have two budgets. Because when we were paying like grants, we would pay it out for the checking and it would earmark it off of equipment or whatever. And then we would put it back from our savings or when we recouped it from the DNR, whatever. But it would still appear, so I would, the budget, I think, oh, we're already spent, we can't buy more equipment. Well, that happened for a couple years and finally with Todd last year, we're like, oh crap, so we ended up with almost 30-some thousand, $40,000 sitting in our checking. And even like the 2% money that plays into 2 as the years are good, get a little more 2% money, which also adds a little bit more in there. So as long as we continue to grow, our 2% money continues to go up, but there are crash, that money went down. So the copy and we didn't get as much from that, so we had less than it. But so that built up on me. That's why we're now in a separate budget. By line, and here's where we're at, exactly what we have. So we don't do that. So we decided with that money to purchase another UTV that is strictly for firefighting. We have one that does both, but as an EMS rescue type thing, it doesn't work. You gotta try to lift the person up 6 feet in here, get them onto it. So it's not a very ergonomical unit. It's 2000, maybe. And so we bought a used from hospital fighter. So we had the money with that. It'd be a great thing to purchase. And so now you'll see it's turned out really good.
And the DNR gave you $4,000.
Yeah, it was, I wrote a grant for, I wrote it for the whole thing, for the entire unit. The DNR denied the UTV portion of it, they only covered the pump and the water tank and the foam tank, so. And that portion was a little over 8,000 something, so I submitted that for payment last week, get our portion of it back, so. But so, yeah, our share should be right around 27, 26 something. So, yeah, long story short, that's why we have, but.
We just use fund balance to pay for it, so then the next month, or the next quarter will go down on that applied fund.
Questions on that? These two concerns? All right. Moving on, I don't know, that we're cleanup and security say that, requested that to you on there, I don't know if anybody knows anything about any of it, or I guess I don't, whether we're gonna pursue this.
Julie might know something about the security part, because I think she was involved in that. Were you not, Julie?
Hi. What was the question?
About Happy River security for the tubing.
Yeah, so we had discussions at the Public Safety Committee. We modified some of our ordinance with regards to cleanup and different things, but we have decided that we're gonna have individuals go down the river, and they can get down the river. Basically, they'll get a free tube from the businesses, and then they'll go down the river and pick up trash. You know, a lot of people are interested in doing that and clean up the community. But we've noticed no real big issues last summer. And so we're gonna just continue on with what we've been doing and still have cleanup receptacles at the exit point so people can get rid of their trash. So there's not been any major calls down there per the fire chief. So not the fire chief, sorry, the police chief. So we should have a good season.
Yeah, so I guess to elaborate a little bit on that. So we had communications with River's Edge, a little bit with Hideaway as well. And they are doing at least weekly cleanup, but basically they're going out a couple times a week, but for sure on every Sunday, they're going through cleaning up all the stuff. The River's Edge will have people at Village Park 7 days a week this year to help with getting people out of the river, helping make sure that we collect some of the garbage right away if there's something that happens, the tube gets lost or whatever, that they're able to try and get it right away. So there are some things that they're trying to do to help mitigate some of the maybe lapses or misses that have been in years past, that they're trying to help pull that in and just tighten it up a little bit. Security, again, from that standpoint, there's nothing as far as the towers, but they are doing the same thing with having people at Village Park 7 days a week. There's going to be someone there from, I think they said noon or whatever until the last people get off the river. So there'll be somebody there versus like last year, they had them there on the weekend and that was it. They didn't have it during the week. Right? So that should take and help with some of the issues that may have been in the past.
That sounds good, yeah. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, in the past, they changed some ordinances where there was gonna be no pickup in the village at all by any businesses. Has that been relaxed, or what are the changes now, or has the ordinance changed? Or
Well, the ordinance was relaxed last year on kind of a trial basis after talking with the village and the chief from last year. Found there really wasn't any major issues. And even the number of calls hadn't really gone up. So we've extended the use of Village Park for pickup for River's Edge. They applied for their license and have the license to get out of Village Park. Right now, they're the only one licensed to get out of Village Park. So unless something else is happening, we haven't actually had a meeting again to see if Hideaway has put in an application or not as of yet.
What was the date you came up with?
There was
July.
right, so they're from what the permit's supposed to be, their permit is good for the whole year. all we were doing was looking at what Rivers Edge wants to do is they actually want the tubers to drop the tubes off when they get out of the water. They'll have like a hay bale trailer there that the Rivers Edge employees will throw the tubes into. And when it's full, they'll take it out, drop off another one. So that way they don't have people trying to drag them all up the hill, little kids and everything else, trying to make it more family friendly.
It's kind of getting rid of that.
They feel,
Get them all quicker where people aren't stuck there. So
and they feel like taking the tube from people, there's a less chance of them sneaking back on the river where they feel that's where they start getting really intoxicated, really silly, and they think that'll help curb that as well.
yeah, and it's not so much about sneaking, but people have the opportunity to go down the second or third time depending on what time of day.
When they return to Riverside, look, they're tubing.
Right, and so now by doing this, they won't have that opportunity. They could go a second time, but they would have to go back to the tube checkout stand and actually, now the employees are looking at them and go, okay, you're too intoxicated, you can't go, or whatever they want to do there. So that's one of the ways also, they're also looking at different ways of tying the tubes versus string to help with some of the garbage, things like that, and the quickness of getting off the bottom.
Is the highway-
Dairy Queen still in, or where will they?
They'll still be across, right now it's on that Hoover property, so right now that's where they're still pick up for this. So what Annie was mentioning about the July 17th or so timeframe was the review of if they can drop the tubes off in Village Park. So they are approved to tube through Village Park and pick up their, or get off of a lot of their through the season. It's just the ability to drop the tubes and have the tubes picked up on their own is going to be reviewed, or July, sorry.
Has the highway been cooperating in some of the discussions you've had, or they've been a part of the discussions?
I've talked with Highway a little bit on it. There's a little more understanding now, so there's some things I know he was looking into, or that they were looking into. So I'm not writing off that he's not gonna put in an application to utilize park. I'm not gonna write that off yet.
Okay.
But that's something we were kind of discussing. So
Unless you.
one of the other things they had is prior last year, there's a $5 million umbrella policy put in place for those two companies that wanted to use the Village Park. It had been 2 million. We just renewed the permit for the amphitheater. It was a 2 million policy, so we went through it and made the change back to $2 million policy. So
Okay.
it makes it more conducive to financially be able to handle it.
So I think that was one of the limits that highway said they could get the $5 million insurance. So, okay.
Sure. How much is the fee that you take out down there? Or the license basically a year?
I honestly don't know. Julie, do you know it all? Just by chance happen to know what the license fee is for the application?
Yeah, it's a few $1,000s. I don't know the exact amount right now, but I could definitely get it for you.
In the past, wasn't that right around 500?
Well, I think with that one, it also, they also pay a fee to pay for the police to be down there as well. So that's kind of split between 3 of the companies. Now there's only 3. So that they pay for police presence for, yeah, 2 to 6, I believe, on Saturday and Sunday.
Right. I think Saturday for sure. I don't know what Sunday. Sunday you're gonna have it, but that is part of it.
But that is part of it, that's why it was more.
Any other questions? Sounds good.
Yeah.
Progress, right?
All right, update on storage. I guess on your work, storage on that stuff you want to store, is that what you're?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what we got for.
Maybe they can probably have that little thing in the end of the shed, but they have that little room or Chip Olson used to have the. We don't have anything in there.
That's it, they-
We got a little bit of stuff there, but not much.
You could probably, like, if you want to move your tables and chairs or tables or whatever. And
Yeah, the only problem will come up with this come winter, and we need them for a meeting, and if you guys have this room, we'll bring chairs and tables and set up, whatever, but
as far as.
something to get it out of the. I mean, we've got our cooking tables are laying, right, you'll see in fact, they're sitting in the bay. So you got this room, much room to go on the edge to get through, we just tried to stuff off of it.
You can take a look at that.
I keep forgetting that, I think one that forget.
All right, new business, Doug's been doing some calculations on
So does everybody have the spreadsheet that I handed out, two-sided spreadsheet?
Can I ask just one more quick question?
Yeah.
Going back to the outward, have you guys heard anything on your end as far as people complaints or?
not, well, mostly it was earlier when they were complaining about the keys on the crash down below.
So, and that's that by the,
Past, yeah, past,
into kind of like the big one, like the lake just before it goes into the dam or?
yeah.
Okay,
That's what, but I think it was better last year. I don't think we had as many complaints, but there was still some.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask that.
No,
To
that's,
see what.
most of the trash, I think,
Okay.
unless,
I know plenty of area stores out there.
and then some of the floaters were going past.
They were making their way down
And then they were getting out in their yards and going.
And that'll also help with, because they're actually, they said that, River's Edge will have someone down there 7 days a week. So hopefully that won't happen at that point.
Yeah,
There's signage down there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There definitely is. Some people think it's kind of a nice word.
Every couple of years, looks like the last time we did it was in 2012. And before that, we did it in 2009. But how the 45-55 split was calculated, and I guess I don't know before I did it in 2009. But the criteria that we actually used was the population of each municipality, the assessed values, the medical runs for each municipality, and the fire runs. And those were a 3-year running average. So we took the last 3 years for each one of those for the medical and the fire runs. So if you look at this spreadsheet right here, the colored one, you can see in the township, the population increased. And here I just did it from 2012 to 2020. Actually, I think it's 2021, isn't it, Gary? Those numbers.
Estimated census population, not final.
Yeah, and it's the same for the town and village, but the other numbers are for, the medical runs and the fire runs are for 2020, so, and it's the same for both the town and the village. But if you look at the increase, the assessed values in the township, the population went up 9%, the assessed values went up 48%, the medical runs went up 16%, and the fire runs went up 25%. In the village, you had a 12% growth, 65% growth in your assessed values, 1% growth in your medical runs, and 67% in fire runs. So, and if I look over on the far right, the column, that's just the average of the two, and what it is for the fire department. So the population, or for both municipalities, the population went up 10%, assessed values between the two municipalities went up 54%, medical runs went up 7%, and fire runs went up 40%. So when we go to the sheet over, and it actually has the hard numbers on there, 2009, 2012, and 2020. And what we do is we run those numbers in there, and then on the third to the right column, we have the weight. What's most important, or what actually costs us the most in the fire department? Is it the equipment? Is it the labor? Is it the number of people or the population? So in the past, so in 2009, when we come up with that, we use the weights of 15% for the municipality, 15% for the assessed values, 35 and 35 for the medical and fire runs. And then that didn't change. And curious, we didn't know what the numbers were going to be. We applied those percents, and at that time it came up to 55.1% for the town and 44.9% for the village. In 2012, with the increases at that time, again, we didn't look at the percent numbers. We filled everything in and surprisingly came up to 54.5 and 45.5. Because the administration is new, we wanted to make sure you were aware of where these calculations came from. So I didn't run the numbers, or actually I did, but I didn't publish those because I want to make sure that everybody agrees upon the weights, because the weights are pretty critical. And you can see the run totals increased for, like assessed values. The village went up substantially and so did the town, both had tremendous growth. But if someone feels that the weight of something should be more important, let's say that it's, we have a lot more medical runs where it's going to be labor. If we look at our budget, what's costing us the most? Or is it going to be a ladder truck? Well, and where would a ladder truck be used? Or in the village or more in the town where you have larger buildings, more industrial buildings. So we wanted to make sure that before I do the run total on it, and then we'll actually make changes if someone wants to make changes, and then we'll publish those percentages on our next joint meeting so that that'll be applied then for next year's budget for the splits. That makes sense? Does anybody have any questions?
The only thing I would ask is that, again, as I said, I literally just got this at 2:04 this afternoon. This one I just got, the other one. I personally would like to get a little more time to digest it, look at it. And
It was probably good to get with Travis too to find out where's your budget going.
Exactly. Well, I got lots of questions. Again, 3 weeks, I got a lot of questions.
I think we were just presenting this to show on the contract up in the end of 2022, so we're just throwing it out there, just to show that's the reason. Well, this is the budget. Oh, the lease agreement is up, that's the end of 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, for next year's budget, I guess.
Yeah, before we do our budget.
Well, we have a contract on this one, too, don't we?
No, that's just been running.
Just a
45
running,
days
just a
from
running,
split.
just a running.
Maybe you should.
I didn't remember if we had a 55.
Maybe.
I think
Yes. So this is actually how the fire rescue, when Travis gives us his budget, that's the percentage. The village pays 45%, the town currently pays 55% based upon the past criteria.
Hey Doug, in 2009 and 2012, was that an average for the previous 3 years?
The run totals?
Yeah.
Yes.
Should have been.
So,
Yes.
so 2020 would include 2018 and 2019 and those
That is
numbers?
correct.
Okay.
Does somebody have this electronic file? Julie doesn't have it. She was wondering if somebody could email us to her.
I didn't bring in my time. No. I didn't send anybody.
Well,
I can email it.
we'll just make sure that you
I'll-
guys do.
I can scan it in email.
Is that okay, Julie?
What's?
You want to look at it now? I mean, I can take a picture and send it to you.
Well,
That'd be
we're
good.
discussing it. We're just presenting it, so we'll make sure she gets it.
Okay, perfect. All right.
What is your email?
You want to go to your village email, Julie?
Yeah, I don't know that off by hand, but I can share it
I
with
do.
you. Thank you.
At vil.somerset.wi.us.
No period.
I don't email myself apparently.
We did talk more at the commissioner board, just so you guys are aware. The hardest part we have is how you put a dollar amount on, like, the value of a call, a fire call versus medical call. We have a medical call that 10 people show up to because it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have that medical call 2 in the morning and 1 person show up. So trying to figure that out, that's the whole game that we have to play when we try to run these numbers, and there's really no good way to do it. Obviously, if we have a structured fire, it's a much more expensive call than a medical call, running a truck out.
What's the severity of the medical one? The guy stubs his toe, is that counting medical?
Right, and so then you're looking at, you got 10 people, maybe $100 and some in wages, plus the fuel to run on their back and wear and tear on the truck. You go to a fire call now, you might have the 10 people, but they're there for 3 hours and now you rent an engine and a tender and a, another whatever, you've got mutual aid coming, which we don't pay for, and vice versa. So it's hard for me to weight everything. I'm debating if I can run a report that will look at the medical calls and the dollar amount we pay out on each one, and then the fire call and how much we pay out on those. I don't know if our software is that intelligent, or if we can work with their help desk to maybe create a report that. So,
Well, we also use this percentage of split up when we buy equipment then too. So, we've got a new tender that's gonna be coming up next year, in 2022. I know Travis and those guys have been looking for a ladder truck, for a large.
right. So, I was gonna make that.
We just wanna make sure that you guys are aware of where the split came from and that you're happy with all the calculations. By coincidence, the 2009 lined up exactly the same as how it had been historically. I think that was the first year that I did it. And then 2012, surprisingly, the numbers changed quite a bit, and they were still at that 55-45 split. So,
Yeah, right now you're at 52.7 and 47.2, so I mean, it's a little bit different, but it's not.
no, it never jumped substantially, but it will change.
Right. Well, I think Travis said your software should have something, people that were entering in, I don't know how they're getting paid, if it's by an hourly call rate or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, the problem is just putting the report, trying to figure out how to write the report, because it's a good software, but on that side of it, it's hard. I mean, it's somebody this is not my full-time job. Just sit and try to play with it and figure something out like that. I end up using support, and then it's days, weeks, a month before I get the report written and stuff.
Travis, if there's an accident on the freeway down here, who gets it?
Where
There's a medical down there, and it's just off
until, so we cover all the way for fire rescue calls. We have an on-way agreement with Richmond Fire. They cover Starkville Township, so we will cover all the way up until the exits, the first exit of the old highway. Exit there, we'll go to there and that's it, and back both sides. Because if you remember back before the highway came in, the middle of the freeway was the Somerset, Starkville. And so depending on who was on what side of the road, they call 911. It's who you got for service. We go beyond that. We go 100. I think it's 100. We 100 and then I don't know. Yeah, I think it's the same spot there. So that was an agreement back in the day because it made zero sense. It's a big wreck right down here. And the guy called and was on the Starkville side of the road. They had to wait for direction and whatever. So it still makes sense based on our location on the wall. So we have all the way with them there and then all the way to the state line between us and St. Joe.
But when you say there's a medical in the township, if it's on the freeway down there, you consider that township or?
100% township. The freeway is. Just like if we have medicals at the senior center when they're here, it's township, and then it goes across the street at the clinic, it's village. And get plenty of them there. So yeah, it's clearly defined by township.
Doug, the one thing I'd ask is because we went 2009, 2012, and then we jumped to 2020, should it be a part of the bylaws that it be reviewed every 3 years?
We do that in 3 or 5, whatever they want. I don't know if it will change very much, but yes, easy enough to do.
At least, or at least some time period that we know so that we have a consistent way of reviewing it to a timeline for review.
Should that be in the bylaws of the fire commission? Report that to them? Where would it be?
No, I don't think it'd be in the.
You're saying instead of waiting 8 years, you would want to do it now.
Well, and I'm just thinking that we should figure out a time
Kind of
frame.
recheck your insurance.
Yeah,
You
consistent.
go on a regular basis. Make sure it's operating.
And whether that's in just policy or procedures or.
I had to go back 2 computers to find that spreadsheet.
2012, that, you're lucky it was only 2.
Discussion on that, something facility discussion. Discussion on the available grant.
We got the DNR one that we're waiting for payment, and then the open FEMA one for the diesel exhaust removal system. For the station, the township would pay the 5%, and we'll cover the 95%. So, other than that, I have no other
You open any COVID money?
We kind of talked about this too. The problem, until I see something we can get, we didn't have any additional costs. It really didn't affect. Because when we went on medicals through COVID, we didn't go in. We stayed out. And if Lakeview needed us, if we got there and the guys in full arrest were going in and providing care. A lot of our medicals are, I'm not feeling well, I need an ambulance. Well, there's no reason for us to risk COVID, so we didn't go in. So our additional COVID costs were fairly low. So at this, we haven't had any reason to write anything for it, but unless there's something that pops up that the clerks of either, village town come across that we could ask for money that if, I don't see any equipment needs that we would need to, or in response to COVID personally, because we have an ambulance system that provides gallons, whatever, if we do have to go in on a scene. So, fortunately, the state gave us a air purifier thing that's running in our office, and we bought some spray for spraying all the trucks when we got back.
Did you buy masks and gloves and sanitizer and all that other stuff on our office supplies that, we may be able to get a couple bucks back to help offset anything through that?
Majority of it, we got from the state. Like the state offered up and you said, here's what I need. The county would come out every couple weeks and say, we're getting another load, what do you guys need? We tell them and the state would ship out. We've got gallons we've never touched. We've got a lot of things, hundreds of masks. We have no N95 masks, but again, when Lakeview here, you need to go in and buy those two other surgical masks. They're basically what we carry.
Just a quick question, somewhat related to equipment. Being that this is a senior center, and we just kind of looked at it at our church too, do you think an AED would be advisable here? Oh, we have one.
The only thing with
That's
that
good.
one, I don't know.
Sure, that's right.
Oh, that's great.
They're only good for what, is it 5 years? They're only good for?
It depends on the model. The batteries have been like we've got it. We use those. We've switched out.
Can we get a testing back when you're doing
We do.
I forgot.
I got the battery.
Yeah, I think we've switched twice since that model,
Yeah.
and we kind of switched with the ambulancers. So they've gone to the whole medical. That's they're not, I think, they're all Medtronic like that. And so we go to Zoll. We have a Zoll on our truck, which uses the same pads as the ambulance, which is great. If we use pads, we just get pads from the ambulance. They replenish them. It doesn't cost us. So we save on all our medical. That's where we really save on medical stuff. We get a lot of recuperated. The more expensive medicals, things like rescue pods, we call them that, tell you what to breathe for somebody that's a cardiac arrest. I think those are hundreds of dollars a piece. They replace them every time. So it's nice in that setting. So if we come anywhere that we go that has a private defibrillator like that, we're taking it off anyways and putting ours on. But yes, it's a great idea to have them in the place. Better idea to make sure it's been tested, because if it fails, you're probably at a higher risk of being sued because you had it.
Yeah. And if you don't have it, if you've got one that's not working because you weren't testing the batteries, you're more liable.
I think you're a little
if you
more
didn't have
liable that
it.
way than not having one of those. And I don't remember, I'm assuming it's home office one or this county, I don't remember how this one came
This
about.
one was donated, I believe,
Was
and
it
I
what?
have
What it was
replaced the battery. The last battery was very expensive. If you guys want to get rid of it, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to buy cheaper ones, I mean, the version we carry, it wasn't $1,500, I think, maybe, or $1,700, if I remember right, for it. And some of the brands you have to test, you have to physically hire somebody who have annually test them, make sure they're working, check the batteries, replace the batteries.
Yes, we have that.
Yeah, the one we have, self-checked, we don't do anything.
Is that the Phillips?
That's what we had last time, now we have a little.
Okay.
So we've moved with Lakeview. As Lakeview changes, unfortunately, we changed, it costs money, but we've also had 2 of those rounds paid for by a family on the department. They bought the full defibrillation. We bought the last.
If that's the CR plus, the Medtronics, I think they've discontinued that one.
Yeah, 2 that one have been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's been honest. But this gets far as servicing, as far as being able to replace 3 parts of it.
Seniors have been there for years, but it's probably because
And I think, is it Firehouse Subs will provide grants for those? I may check into that.
Yeah, they might do that for, I don't know if it's just for fire departments or if it's for community stuff too. I can't remember. I've written a few for them and we never get them.
Okay.
But you might have more luck as senior center township would be.
All right.
It's the county site.
Okay,
It's run by
Oh,
St.
the county, they use the space.
Department. We just let them use the building.
Next time we go to the replacing the tender in 2022.
So as always, we just keep it on here so they don't surprise. We're still looking at that one could be a 1990, or it is a 1992, so I'm 30 years old next year. That was kind of our replacement schedule. 30 years on trucks. As you know, the last one we bought of that, we would model it after exactly what we have. It's no frills, so basic carry your water, dump your water. And that was 165,000 back in 2006. And it's 265,000 in 2020 for the exact same similar truck. From here, so we would look for Rosenbauer, wherever, custom won't touch it and not so it's not a custom built truck. They're not going to build a basic tender like that. It's just not in their world of they only build so many trucks a year and they want the custom, the money truck. So we at some point we have to have a serious discussion of if we're moving forward with 22, we need to start specing it. So these trucks
Take about a year.
I don't know.
they're pushing a lot of time now. It sounds like they got Pierce. They're so with COVID and getting parts and pieces for these vehicles, they build them from the ground up. And actually, I think a tender was built in Florida, a plant down there, where our engine was in Appleton.
Did you say 255 or 265?
I just go 265, I believe. He's broken down each year how much it's going to go up based on history. And I have it somewhere.
So people kind of know how much you're talking.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Still half the cost of the last one.
Well, that last one, that one's probably about 750,000.
And you guys, have you been putting away every year a little?
We don't put anything.
You don't put anything away?
We have no capital expenditure. Our budget is under $200,000, which covers insurance, payroll, equipment, fuel, utilities, and building.
How long have you known you might need a new truck? And you haven't been saving for it at all?
We don't. That's
We don't.
You guys, so history is the township puts money in there, says how it comes there.
Well,
And that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
so
The
there
village,
is a honeypot somewhere.
there's that, the village generally finances the other, move money from the tips or however they work
It's
the
up to
money.
each individual municipality.
Again, where the 45-55 plays in,
Gotcha.
45% on you, 55 on the township.
That'd be your previous board if they were sticking like on, you guys just take enough money to cover all expenses for the year, and that's it.
Yeah, we have, I mean, it's $200 is pretty low.
I mean,
And you-
about 4 or 5 years ago, you still used to have a capital outlay budget. And then municipalities decided that why is there, the fire department doing that? We'd rather have them work just on their budget and spend it out each year. And then the municipalities could manage that.
And I don't think we actually had like a capital outlay budget, like it was, the way it was written in the budget, the way the breakdown was, and then it didn't make, we would budget X amount for this, X amount for that, but it was never the large purchases, so SCBA's come off, we need, and SCBA is a self-contained breathing apparatus, so we need new ones of those. We wrote grants year after year, trying to get them, we finally paid a grant writer, we got them in the last year that they expired, so then it was 95% covered by FEMA, 5% village township. Those are the purchases that we don't save for, but I put them in my 5-year plan, which you probably haven't seen, that kind of spells out. So each truck I kind of have on a 30-year rotation. NFPA says 20 years. We know we don't use them like a 20-year department. And Minneapolis and Fuzzy probably last 3 years. So we have it on a 30. We try to do bigger trucks and then smaller trucks just to try to break it up. The ladder we keep talking about, it's not until 2028. It's only 7 years away, but that's when the second engine from 1998 will become 30 years old. And the reason we look at a ladder is we're growing, you're gonna have more industry, you're gonna have more. That's where the discussion will come in on where is it used, what they use for, who's gonna benefit, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like a tender, somebody in the village might realize, not think a truck that carries 2,000 gallons of water is gonna do anything because we have hydrants. Well, we can suck a hydrant down on a flare pretty easy. You've got a couple engines running on the right branch of that system, we can drop it. And so you could use it. If we have to supplement more water, sprinkler system that we can't keep up, in building. So I tried to do everything. It was never very well organized prior to us coming in we kind of tried to space trucks out and we started replacing trucks, and got it on that 30-year rotation, so.
The other thing that I asked Travis to provide that I didn't get on here yet was his budget, his annual budget for the past 10 years. So that we can see how that compares to the growth of the municipalities themselves. They've done a really good job of keeping their budget down. In fact, the last 3 years, our 2% growth has basically paid their budget increase. So the municipalities themselves, their budgets haven't gone up hardly at all.
And you've had your capital plan, equipment plan,
That
for 3 years that I've been here.
Yeah, it was wrong, but back to Jeff Johnson, the eye opener, and that's why we keep putting it on the agenda, is when Jeff Johnson was village president, up until the year before we ordered the truck, where does this come from? I didn't know it was on the 5-year plan for 7 years prior to that. And so it being a $265,000 or $565,000 truck at the time, it was a big investment. And again, you guys don't put away for it. Now you gotta finance your share, where the town always continues to put some money in it. So we try to keep it on the radar. We try to make sure everybody's aware of it so we don't forget about it. I won't forget about it. Obviously, I'm gonna continue to bring it up. But at some point, we'll have to make the decision that the village is okay with moving forward, the town's okay, we set a dollar amount, what have you, we start specing it, we start getting the order in, and take delivery in the 22 or whatever we decide.
Is it possible to use impact fees for fire? The village has impact fees, correct?
I'll have to look into it.
Because the township doesn't have impact fees, but I know building permits and that. Is it for just buildings or is it for equipment? Like that?
Julie, you know, literally it's been 3 weeks, I'm learning how to lawyer,
Parks, fire.
yeah, Julie, do you know about that?
The cost of the
Impact-
fire impact fee?
What does that include, the impact fees?
Yeah, that just went up, didn't it, when we raised the water rate?
Yeah.
They use it for parks.
That's up to the village. to
Yeah,
decide.
right.
Yeah.
So it's a way to finance. fire.
And bottom line is that percentage that goes into those spaces that we agree upon will help determine the cost of each person, each village in the town share of that new piece of
Because
equipment.
as the population goes up, there's more calls, there's more impact.
Let's update the numbers for you. That's on the email. If we were ordering 21, it's a $290,000 truck.
What this,
This tender that we're talking about. In 22, it's 298,674.
that's not more than what you said.
This is Pierce's. But again, like I said, I mean, we have a dollar amount, we have to, this is just asking our rep that we work with, just say, hey, what is that truck that's in other cost to build today?
What's our old one?
I don't know. We do really good on that Wisconsin surplus. We'll be selling trucks too, and that's where we sold the rescue and the other end. We've done pretty good on that surplus website. So I don't know what they go for. I don't know. To a rural department up north, a private grade truck. The other thing is it's our last manual truck. And if you understand younger kids, they don't have a clue how to drive it. So getting into the automatics. Right.
They have big wheels, big stiff cans, and we're trying to run
That's
a
your big boots, and that truck is tight shifting pattern on top of it. So if you really aren't good with the manual, you're missing gears every time you're shifting.
All right, anything else? Otherwise, we've been through this agenda. Next thing is set the date and time of the next joint meeting would be at the Village Hall. It would be normally would be July 20th, would be the normal date. So you guys coordinate that and see if that works for you guys. Next quarter. If it doesn't work, you guys let us know. Being a lot of business on the agenda, we can adjourn.
So it's one of the things, we just need to make sure that everybody that's on the fire rescue commission in the village, like Julie Nelson,